Alrighty then, hello. Let's do some Haskell programming. You might have noticed I gently rebranded. I'm no longer learning Haskell. I'm now graduated, I think, to programming Haskell. Not that I think I've finished learning Haskell, but more I've kind of given up on that as a concept. I think I know it well enough to write some stuff, but there's so much I don't understand or don't know yet. I'll just keep practicing and getting better. And I don't think I'll ever finish learning it, but hopefully I'll just keep improving. Also, I think I've done like best part of 100 hours. It was 90 something hours of live streaming, all learning Haskell. So you think after that I'd have learned some stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start a slightly different project today. It's a thing called Showtime, and it is a little program I wrote probably about a year ago. And I use it in work because we have like a little internal podcasting. And it's got a random rotating cast. It picks like 3 random developers from the pool of people that want to take part. And then we just sit down and talk about various software engineering things and record it and then share it with the rest of the company. So the script to pick the cast is fine, but it's very limited. It doesn't help me much with the organizational side of things. So I want to take that code base and just start improving it, I guess, adding functions to it, but also tidying up the code a bit, adding new things. And maybe I can play with things like you may be running a Slack client, so we can plug into Slack and control it through there. So that's the plan. Today, I guess I'm mostly just going to try and refamiliarize myself with the code. I had a quick look before this, but yeah, just make sure I understand what's going on and kind of naively add a little bit more functionality. So maybe to get started, let me show you what it looks like now and what it does. One sec. Sorry. Right then, so let me show you in action. You can see it in action here. You say run it, and it picks a host and a couple of participants. And it does that by looking in this file, and the hosts are lines that start with the word host, and then the remaining people are just participants. And the host can also be included in the participants if they're not already hosting. So you run it again. Yes, in theory it should pick a slightly different set, or does it not? No, it did pick a different set. That's cool. Okay, so it picked a different host, and that's all it does. I was trying to get it to pick a host as a participant, but it's not doing that because of randomness. Oh, there we go. Okay, so Betty's a host and also shows up as a participant here. That's all it does at the moment. And once a month or so, I run this and I get a cast list, and then I copy it into Slack. So that's fine. But I kind of want to manage that file, that people file. I want to be able to use the script to add and remove hosts or add and remove people from that list rather than having to find the file myself and go and edit it. So that's what I'm going to start looking at today. But before that, I'll look at how the code works. It's essentially all of this stuff is loading up. I'm sorry, this stuff is loading the list of people out of the file. Then we grab the host by taking by selecting one person from that list of hosts, and then we grab the participant by taking a configurable number of people out of that list, which is participant list without the host in it. So participants got everybody, including hosts. So we just pull the current host out of that list. And this load config, I found this earlier, it's a little bit strangely named. It is here. So it returns this thing called appenv. I'm not quite sure why I call it load config and returns an appenv, but anyway. In the app environment, you have a file path, which is the path to the file that contains list of people. and this participant count, which is currently not configurable from the command line. It's hard coded to be this value 2. So to find the file path, what we're doing is we are finding config home, and then if that variable is set, we assume that the people file is in there. Actually not great, but that's what we assume. And if that variable is not set, then we just assume the people file is in the current directory. So we have our config now, which is actually an append, which contains the path to the file and the number of participants. For some reason, the next thing I do is seed the random number generator, but this is just using current time, I think, to seed the generator. So it's reasonably random, but not sort of cryptographically securely random. We have our generator, which we don't use quite yet. Don't know why I did it in the middle, but then we have this load config. Again, a bit of a strange name. It's probably in here. Yeah, sorry, we load the list of participants and hosts out of using the config. So it gets given this app environment, which I've called config. And it returns a list of host participants, but it runs under IO because it's reading from a file. So what's happening here is just read the whole file, be text. Yeah, data text IO. So it's reading the whole file as text. It's splitting into lines and storing it in something called F. And then it's splitting that list of lines from the file based on whether they are a participant. Sorry, whether they're a host. And the host is just the line begins with the text host. And that will return me two lists. The first list is the ones that match this predicate. So they go as host, and the remaining list is the ones that don't. Then I run cleanup on each of the hosts, and all that does is take the host prefix out. You're left with just a name. I have to look at why this is a maybe. But I guess it's a maybe because it doesn't know whether or not you have this prefix. Yeah, so if this returns nothing, then we just return the original string. Otherwise, we return the string with a host removed. That's the cleanup part. And then we just return the hosts, the cleaned up hosts, and then the list of everybody in the file, so the host and the participants. And then if we go back to main, the next thing we do is we use a take random function, which is just here. So this is something I used previously. I think I streamed a lot of this where I was looking at picking random people. That's what we do. So what we do is we have a list of people, these are the X's, list of participants, and we zip it with a whole bunch of random numbers. So this is just an infinite stream of random numbers. Then we sort that. Zip will give us back a list of pairs. We sort that list of pairs on the second value in there, so on the random number it's generated. And then we take, then we drop out the random numbers by calling first on that list. We map first of that list, so we end up with just the X's again, but now in some different order. And then we take the required number of things from that list. So for the host, we just take one thing, and for the participant, we take whatever the config says we should take, and then we just print it out. So we turn it into a cast. Cast is a collection of hosts and participants, and then our helper called ppcast, which is, I think, very dumb. Yep. Oh, use format. Okay, that's interesting. I must be looking at format at the time, but uses format to build a string. Basically, I'll build a text in this case. So it just says who host is, and then it joins participants with a comma, and then some new lines. So that's all it does at the minute. That's the entire code base. Don't think there are any tests. Probably not. There's no test directory there. Okay, so I think the next thing I'd like to do is another way of managing this file a little bit. And I'm thinking you could maybe add something which is some subcommands. So you could say, I'll run like that. You could say, I think it's showtime exe, what it's called. Showtime exe, and you would run it with some arguments, and I'd probably say something like hosts add Bob. What I'd like to do, I think. And it should take the people file and it should add Bob into their prefix by host. And then obviously you have host remove. Maybe as well we could have hosts show like that. And maybe something for participants. Okay. So that's what I'll look at today. And I'm going to start with the I'll start with hosts, I think. So back to main. So this functionality, so where we, given a list of host participants, we pick out a host and we pick out the cast and then print it out. I think as a particular command, that's the kind of the cast picking. I think I've previously referred to this as just a function called cast. So I'm going to move that into its own function and make that the default. So if you don't give this program any arguments, that's what it's going to do. So what we'll do here is we will take a config, which is the type of config was appenv, and running under IO, we will print some stuff out. We're not going to return anything. Okay, so this is equal to some stuff. What are we doing here? We're going to, I just copy some of this stuff out. So the random generator can go into here because we don't need anywhere else. We will, in fact, just grab all of this stuff and pop it up here. We're not going to load from the config, we're going to load from the env, as it's called now. It comes out of the environment. Oops. I think my language server is broken. Not sure. Let's restart it anyway. Because it's an old project, the version of base drifted, so it didn't work with the version of GHC that I'm running here. That's good. Slightly better. So I had to upgrade that, and I think the language server broke while I was waiting for me to update it. Okay, so we load the config. I guess that's going to be a common thing. And then we should be able to say case args. And if we have an empty list of args, then we will run cast. And if we have anything else, so I guess it's going to be commands, we will parse the command. Maybe I'll just say one command. I'm just going to name this to, oops. I'll call this C's for commands. And C's for commands. So cast will take an argument which is config. And not args, is it get args or something? environment get args. That's what I want. Okay, get args. Oh, someone's under IO, so we want to say actually, I'm just going to call this thing run. Do its own function, so we can. I don't know why I'm putting this above main. Let's swap this around. So we'll put main at the top. Run, take the config and the args. The run is going to take append, and it's going to take the arguments, which is list of string, I think it is. What get args is doing. List of string. And running under IO, it's going to return nothing. So now we can say run some environment and an empty list of arguments. So in this case, this is where we run cast with config or env here. And if we say run with the environment and some commands, and this is where we want to then say run command, give it the m, give it this list of these. Okay, because this is running under IO, it needs to because it's going to call cast. You can say get args. Okay, so now run command. It's going to take a list of, well, it's going to take the append, because that seems to be the case everywhere. So we might change this in a bit, because the fact I'm passing append everywhere suggests that I should be using reader T, reader TIO, I guess. But we can come back to that. For now, I'll just keep passing it in everywhere. We take the environment, we take a list of strings, and we run under IO. I don't think this needs to be its own function. And then we don't need to pass the environment in again. Okay, so go can just take a list of strings, but even then it's not even worth writing out because it's a list of strings. So we can just start to match this. We can say if you call go and it's host, I want to destructure this a little bit, so it's going to be host followed by some other stuff. Host command. So if that's the case, then we want to say run hosts with host commands. And then everything else, we can just return an error. So we say unexpected command. In fact, let's take this error. Sorry, we'll say go. We'll take a list of some stuff, not what to call it there, and we'll go in the stuff into there. Okay. a list of strings. So I shouldn't match it as characters, I don't think. I match it like that. I cannot. Oh, another thing, actually, just need to take the environment. Okay, so C's is a list of string. Right. Go takes a list of strings, and it's going to return a nothing. Okay, so now we can't just use stuff. We could show it for now. That should be good enough. Oops. So now we need to run hosts, and this will now take append again, and it's going to take a list of strings, and it's just going to run their IO. So now these are the subcommands. So if we have add and then some name, then we can say run add host with the environment and the name, and then run host with anything else. Just throw an error for now, and we'll say unexpected command and show whatever X is. Okay. And then run as host. I've got an error, but I'll go back to in a second. So run as host. Now we take an append and we take a name, which is a string at this point. So we're going to turn it into text and just append it to that file. Run as host is going to be something like append, which we don't have yet. See how we do stuff here. So load env, let's say append env, and then what we'll add into that file is host space, and then t.pack the name. And the name. Okay, so I need to add append. And then we have a whole bunch of stuff going wrong. So confused by switching between Mac and Windows now, or Mac and Linux. It's just the command key is just such a pain. Okay. Host commands is not correct. We actually do need to destructure this better. The list of strings. The first string is hosts, and then the subsequent ones. Okay. Pack is not in scope. I think I did something nasty before and just imported it directly. I did not. Okay. So we could say import qualified data.text as t. It's with t.pack. And now we just have the append problem. So in storage, we have load. I will also add append. So take append. Oops. And the host, which is a what is this type of host? That just comes from a file called cast. Oh, okay, so we have a type called person. That's kind of cool. Not cool because it's just a type alias. So we can come back to this later and make it a new type. It's quite interesting that it code wrote a year ago. It's not terrible, but it's, or maybe it is, but it's not terrible compared to what I know now. But some of the stuff is a little bit chunky. I would do it slightly differently now. A little bit untidy in places. Right, we take a person, and we're just going to run under IO and not return anything. So we should be able to. Oh, person not exported. It's not. It is now. Okay. So destination append. It's going to take an environment, and it's going to take a. Oh, it's going to take. Actually, this is not even a person at this point. This is really just text because they're already prefixed with host. But maybe I don't want to do that. Actually, I'll do it like that initially, and then I'll come back and have a look at fixing this up a bit with new types, and a proper data type. So a person can either be a host or a participant. But for now, we'll just say we're going to just add X to this file, basically. And I need to look at the equivalent of read file, but for writing into a file. Okay, so read file from data text. Not showing up there. Read file from data text IO. What I want. So there's an append file. Exactly what I want. So you can get the file path and then just append to it. Cool. You say append file, file path from our environment .x. Not happy. And file path. Ooh, what's file path here? Oh, just nearly for string. Okay. Too much text list a character. Oh, which append file is it pulling in? Pulling the one from Prelude. Okay, slightly better. So now file path needs to be a string and not text. So this is going to be unpack. We t to unpack. I should really qualify that. So import data.text qualified as t. Oops. I can drop the word qualified. That's good. Okay, and then I'll import text to type directly. Everything else needs to be prefixed with t's. I don't know why partitions suddenly become ambiguous. Clearly from here. I'm confused as to where it thinks it's coming from. The list or t partition, but it doesn't say t. Do this nicely then. And we'll put this as L. Wow. Maybe I do need to say qualified. Okay. So t.unpack lines. No. Is there t.lines? There is. Okay. Yeah, prefix element here. Prefix. Okay. So our definition of append is really just calling append file, but pulling out the file path, turning it back into string. Don't need to do. We can reduce it. This is true. Okay. Not that. And we'll export append from here. And nope. In main, you'll be able to import append from storage. Oh, because it's scrolled off. Okay, so theory now we can append to the list of hosts. Let's have a look and see. So if I just cat people, and then I should be able to say, build it quickly to get rid of all the noise. I should be able to say something like cabal run. Oops. Showtime XE, and then we'll say host add Bob. And we look at people. Yeah, we now have host Bob. Got to put new line in, so that's going to be problematic. Also, it should be lowercase host. Okay. So we can do that, and we will add a new line. I might make that a function, a part of append actually. I think you pass in a string to append and it puts on a line on its own. So in here, x again, and we will add x with new line. Okay, so now if I just build it out of the way, add Bob. There we go. Host Bob has been added and it's proper new line at the end. Okay. So that's adding a host. We could remove it, but actually before I remove it, I'm a little bit annoyed about this being text and having to pass in the string host. Doesn't feel like I should do that. It'd be better to pass in type, which is the host type, and append should be able to cope with that. So this is going to be a little bit of refactoring. So we say, I'll leave person in place for now. Actually, I'll leave all this nonsense in there for a moment. But we can say type of host. In fact, we'll say new type host. And use constructor host, and it will have unhost, which is a string. Not a string, it's text. Okay, so I should now be able to say we're going to say let's export that as well. I'll export the constructor. Okay, so back in here, sorry, we can now change this. So append is not going to take text anymore, it'll take a host. And now this is a host. We now know that it's a host. So here we can say unhost host. I might actually change that. I think I'll change that because I don't really want unhost at this point. What I really want is a function which is something like pphost. It's not even pretty printing it, is it? I could just show it. That's safe. Instant host. Instance show host where show. I got some host h, which is equal to h. It's not just equal to h, it's actually equal to. Specifically, I want host lowercase followed by t.unpack h. Import qualified data.text as t. Okay, so I now should be able to show this host and it should print out the right string. So, nope, not there, sorry. Back in storage. Let's say show host. Okay, so when we write a file, we don't want to use show because that gives us back a string and actually we want to keep it as text. Okay, so we can say I don't know, it's like some equivalent. Is there like t.show? There's not a thing. Can I say instance t.show of the capital S, wouldn't it? Host where? Yeah, that's not a thing. Okay. So I just need to think of a name for a function. So we can have I don't want to call it show because that's part of the show interface class. We could just call it print. It's not a great name. It's not going to be host string, it's going to be host text. I'm just take an H and we will unpack. We won't unpack anymore, we'll just say unhost H. Okay. Maybe I'll call this store. Store is not quite right because it suggests I'm actually storing it, and what I'm doing is preparing it for storage. But I was thinking I could write a type class called storable or something. storable. And maybe say for storage. So we could just call it encode and decode. Right, kind of marshalling and unmarshalling. So marshal will take an X and return us a text, some text. And then we should say instance storable host where marshal of the host is equal to, and then this definition beneath. And then we can just export storable. Maybe it doesn't go in here. I was going to put it in the storage class, but then we might get a circular dependency. But no, we shouldn't, because then the storage class wouldn't need to know about host anymore. It just needs to know about storables. Okay, and then we can write non-marshaller, I guess. So in storage, we should be able to get rid of. Oh, no, I am going to have a circular dependency until I get rid of the loading returning hosts and participants. What it should really do is return things which get unmarshaled, marshalable. Can't say that. Okay, so I'm just going to temporarily create a new thing called what? So I'm going to temporarily put it back into cast, even though I want to remove it again. Okay, so we'll export storable. Okay, so back in here, we'll get rid of host on host. We won't take a host anymore, and we'll just take a storable. And it's not going to be a host. Oh, get that wrong. Expecting one argument storable because I said storable X, and I shouldn't have said that. Okay. So I think I might have to qualify this. Maybe I don't. No parameter for class storable. So it needs some parameter. Yeah, the whole point about the whole point about this is it's supposed to take any arguments, storable X, X is type. Constraint. How does this work? So storable doesn't go here. I've got how to write Haskell. Given some storable thing, and oops, we call this with that thing. Okay, good. We don't show the host. We don't call it host anymore. I'll just call this X. And the thing we can do with this is marshal it. Okay, so given something which is storable, we write to the file. Okay. Now back in main, it should be broken because you can't append this. Why is it stuck in input? Append this, but what you can append is host of that. We'll import cast that. Okay, so it should be the same thing, but now we're not passing around strings anymore. We're passing around the type of host, which is somehow able to be stored in the database. Does this build? Yes. What's in there? We got a host called Bob. We'll add another host called Bob. There we go. Okay, that's not, well, it still works. It's not great behavior because it's not deduplicating that list. And I'm also wondering what would happen if I added host of Hoppy, because then Hoppy would be both participant and host, which is not right. Okay, but for now, let's just keep going for a bit. So another host command, given the environment, let's look at delete and take some name. I'm going to say run delete host, environment, and name. Delete host goes append string IO, and we can say run delete host, and the name is called delete, I guess. Listen to storage, and host of t.pack name. Okay, got some name clashes here, so let's import qualified storage as s. Then I can call s.delete here, just to make it super clear. It doesn't export. Delete. Here we can s.append. And somewhere down here we can have s.load. And get rid of the unqualified import. Okay, so back in our storage, we want to delete stuff. And again, I gotta make sure this thing is storable. And we'll take the environment. We'll take A, and we will just have some side effect. So delete mvex. What we're going to do is load the file, break it into lines. Then we want to, we'll have a list of lines. We'll just delete the one that matches whatever the marshalling of this thing is. And then we want to write it back out to the file in some safe way. Not sure how well this is going to work with laziness, but we'll give it a shot and see what happens. So what we're going to do, we want I'll just write it out in long form. So we'll say we'll say lines. That's a function name. So we just call it ls contents is read file. Okay, read file. I'm going to make that a local function. So we'll qualify our import. Okay, so get rid of that. So this will be tio.append file, and this will be tio.read file. I'll give the environment. So read file will take an append and just return a list of texts. And the definition of read file is this one. Okay, so that's how we can read the file, and then we can just replace this by calling read file. Partition is host over read file. Probably doesn't work. Let's find out what happens. Read file env. I can't use at the end of a let. That's not going to work. So we can say f. We'll call it contents again. Contents comes from read file env, and then this will just change to f contents. Okay. Right. So we have our contents, and then we want to delete. So we should have some kind of l.delete. Then the marshalling of x from the contents. And then we just write the file again. And write file, I'm guessing will take the same arguments. So it's going to have file path. Is t.unpack file path config, which just makes a string. Okay, so let's start this. We can say import qualified data.list as L. L.partition. So now L.delete. Maybe type delete, yes. Okay. I'm going to delete A from list of A's and get the list of A's back. Okay, cool. So contents prime is equal to that. We need a let in there. And then we write contents prime into there. Write file takes file path and text runs under IO. I couldn't match. Oh, we need to unlines it. Okay. And what's up? What's wrong with this? List of text. Oh, needs the env. Right. And then config's undefined. So call this env. Call env there. And then we can export delete. Okay, back to main. So should just be able to call delete on this now. So I think we can call. I'll build it first. Count people, and we can say host remove Bob. I expect a command remove Bob. Was it delete Bob? Yes. We count the people. Run it again. Rebuild there. Okay, cool. And if I run it again, there should be no change. Okay, so I think it's recompiling because one of the files changed. It was the people file because it gets modified. So you can add and delete. I might call this remove because I think it's a bit nicer. Oops. That run remove host. Explicit export list required for renaming. I don't know what that means. But I can just type remove here and fix the one call site. Okay, and then instead of s.delete, we might call, I'll just leave it as s.delete. Okay. We can add and remove hosts from our file. So in theory, I can say hosts and Bob, and then I can run any arguments, and it should pick a list for me. Bob is now the host, conveniently. And he also shows up as a participant, which is what I would expect. Okay, so one other thing is when I add a host that's already there, I don't want to add it again. It's not even append. It's kind of like a, let's call it insert or add. And I might call this remove, just make names line up. Okay. So adding becomes a little bit more complicated. We want to get the contents out. And then if we cannot find the Marshall text in the current file, then we will append it. That's what I want to say. So we can say case l.find. L.contains. I don't know what's inside L. And the language server's not helping me. That's cool. So we're looking for a list of A's and an A and a bool. Let's split that round because that's not the result I expected. Elem, that's what I wanted. So, you use a backtick normally, don't you, to make it look all fancy like. So you can say if X, it should have been imported as well because it's in base. So that's an element of contents. I can use an if statement because it's just a boolean. X is an element of contents. Oh, we do nothing. There's something called when. And how does it work? Yeah. So can I say when X is of contents, then do this thing. Okay, contents. List of text. But X is a storable. Okay, so that's not what I want. So we want to add it's the marshalling of X. So this is like let's content is marshal X of content of contents. Then we add to the file with a new line. Okay, build that. Ooh, I renamed it. Forgot to rename it in main. So this was add, and this is remove. Build it again. Okay, cool. It builds. So if I just look at people, if I try and add Betty as a host, it should just do nothing. It did not do nothing. It did the thing. Okay, so why did that not work? First, we read the file. LM should force it to evaluate because it might be lazily read. I can't remember if I imported strict or not. No, I could import IO. Is it strict by default actually in data text? I can't remember. Data text IO. I'm not high performance sensitive. If entire file is read strictly as we get contents. Okay, so it shouldn't be a problem with that. Where were we? In add, we should have the entire contents of the file, which is split up into lines. Then we marshal our thing, or storable thing. And, oh, sorry. It's the way around. So when it's not an element, so I want the negation of this. What's going on here? Unless. Oh, cool. I did myself as a helper as well. Unless that thing. Control. No. Yeah, control one add. And then we'll do the when. Okay. So when it doesn't contain the element, unless it already contains the element, then we're going to write it. Yeah, but you found when it's not an element. You're correct. I got there eventually. So I should be able to use this to remove Betty. Oh, it removed first Betty. Okay, shouldn't really matter. If I try and add Betty, oh, Betty does not get re-added to the file, which is good. Okay, cool. So I think we're good here. Added a little bit of functionality for managing the file. I'm going to stop at this point. Next time, I'll have a look at adding and removing participants. I'll make them storable as well. And I'd quite like to return, I'm not sure about this, returning host participants. Maybe it's okay, actually. The thing that's bothering me is storable being in the cast list. It shouldn't be storable, it should be in the storage thing. But I don't want to create a circular dependency. So I couldn't implement this interface inside cast if it's defined in this file. If this file is also importing hosts and participants. So I might look at moving some stuff around. But yeah, we can keep working next week and then just add a little bit more functionality. Cool. Thank you for watching along, and hopefully see you again next week. Goodbye.